How does wearing the wrong dress to the wrong club become the moment my marriage unravels in public? What began as a secret night out ended with legal papers in my hand, my family divided, and my reputation in tatters. Can I still call myself the victim when the outcome is exactly what I provoked? The red dress hung in our closet like a promise I'd made to myself 3 months ago, but never kept. Silk, form-fitting, with a neckline that dipped just low enough to make Patrick uncomfortable. Tonight I was finally going to wear it. "You're really going to Lila's dressed like that?" Patrick looked up from his stack of math tests, his reading glasses perched on his nose, in that way that used to make me feel protected, but now just made me feel invisible. I smoothed the fabric over my hips, watching myself in the hallway mirror. At 33, I still had it. The curves that had made him chase me 8 years ago. The legs that used to make him forget about grading papers. When was the last time he'd even looked at me? Really looked? "It's just dinner with my sister," I lied, applying another coat of lipstick, deep red to match the dress. "Maybe we'll grab drinks after." Patrick's frown deepened. "That dress isn't for grabbing drinks with Lila." "What's that supposed to mean?" I turned to face him, one hand on my hip. The gesture pushed my chest forward, and I watched for his reaction. Nothing. Not even a glance. "It means—" He set down his pen and removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "It means you look like you're going somewhere you shouldn't be going." Heat flashed through me. "So now you're my father? I can't dress up for my own sister? Idalia, come on. We both know." "We both know what, Patrick?" "That I'm supposed to sit here in sweatpants watching you grade papers for the rest of my life? That I'm supposed to disappear just because you have?" The words hung between us like a slap. Patrick's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. He never did anymore. Just that quiet disappointment that made me feel like a child being scolded. I grabbed my purse and keys. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up." "Idalia." His voice was soft, almost pleading. "Please don't do this." But I was already walking out the door, my heels clicking against the hallway tiles like a countdown to something I couldn't name yet. The Uber driver's eyes found mine in the rearview mirror as I slid into the back seat. "Onyx nightclub," I told him, and felt a thrill run through me at the words. Not Lila's apartment. Not another quiet evening talking about her dating disasters, while I pretended my marriage wasn't slowly suffocating me. My phone buzzed. A text from Lila. "Mum called asking about dinner. Told her we're having Thai food and wine. You owe me big time for this." I typed back quickly. "Thank you. I just need one night." Another buzz, this time from my mother. "Have fun with Lila, mija. Be careful." If she only knew. Onyx was everything Patrick would hate. Loud music, dim lighting, and bodies pressed together on a dance floor that pulsed with bass and possibility. I ordered a cosmopolitan at the bar and let myself disappear into the crowd. For the first time in months, I felt alive. Men looked at me, actually looked. Their eyes followed the line of my dress, lingered on my face when I smiled. I was Idalia again, not just Patrick's wife or Emily's mother, or the woman who processed shipping invoices 40 hours a week. "That dress is dangerous," a voice said behind me. I turned to find a man about my age, dark hair, and the kind of smile that suggested he knew exactly what effect he had on women. His name was something with an M. Marcus? Michael? It didn't matter. What mattered was the way he looked at me like I was the only woman in the room. "Is it?" I leaned against the bar, letting the silk stretch across my body. "Definitely. Can I buy you another drink?" I should have said no. Should have finished my cosmopolitan and called an Uber home to Patrick and his stack of tests. Instead, I heard myself say, "I'd like that." The second drink became a third. His hand found the small of my back when he leaned in to talk over the music. When he asked me to dance, I didn't hesitate. On the dance floor, surrounded by strangers and colored lights, I let myself forget. Forget about Patrick's disappointed sighs. Forget about the way he turned away from me in bed. Forget about feeling like a ghost in my own life. The man's hands were on my waist, pulling me closer as we moved to the rhythm. When he spun me around, pressing my back against his chest, I closed my eyes and pretended I was someone else. Someone who mattered, someone who was wanted. I didn't see Tom Mitchell at the bar, nursing a beer and watching with wide eyes. Tom, who'd been Patrick's best friend since college. Tom, who was supposed to be at home with his wife and twin boys, not witnessing his best friend's wife grinding against a stranger in a red dress. I didn't see him pull out his phone. Didn't see the flash as he captured the moment. My head thrown back in laughter, the stranger's hands on my hips, the two of us looking like exactly what we were, a married woman forgetting she had a husband. My phone buzzed in my purse, but I ignored it. Nothing could touch me here. Nothing could make me feel small or invisible or wrong. The stranger leaned down to whisper in my ear, his breath hot against my neck. Want to get some air? For a moment, I almost said yes, almost followed him outside, and let this night become something I couldn't take back. But some part of me, the part that still remembered Patrick's trembling voice saying, "Please don't do this," pulled me back from the edge. "I should go," I said, stepping away from him. He looked disappointed but not surprised. "Your loss." Maybe it was. Maybe I was just another suburban wife too scared to take what she wanted. But as I gathered my purse and called for a ride home, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Desired, wanted, alive. The Uber ride home was a blur of streetlights and regret that hadn't quite settled in yet. I checked my phone and saw 3 missed calls from Tom Mitchell. Strange. Tom never called me. There was also a text from an unknown number. "You sure you're at Lila's?" My blood went cold. I stared at the message, my hands suddenly shaking. Who would know I wasn't at my sister's? Who would care enough to check? The answer hit me like a physical blow. Tom. Tom had seen me. Tom knew. As we pulled into my driveway, I saw Patrick's car in its usual spot. The house was dark except for the porch light he always left on for me. Guilt crashed over me in waves as I fumbled with my keys, the red dress suddenly feeling like evidence of a crime. Inside, Patrick was asleep on the couch, his glasses folded on the coffee table next to a cold cup of tea. He'd waited up despite what I'd said. The sight of him there, vulnerable in sleep, made my chest tight with something I didn't want to examine too closely. I tiptoed past him to our bedroom, peeling off the red dress and shoving it to the back of the closet. In the bathroom mirror, I looked like a stranger. Smeared lipstick, wild hair, and eyes that held secrets I wasn't ready to confess. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'd figure out what Tom's text meant. Tomorrow, I'd deal with the consequences of tonight. But for now, I just wanted to slip into bed and pretend I was still the woman Patrick had married. The woman who would never betray his trust or make him question everything he believed about our life together. As I lay in the dark listening to his steady breathing beside me, one thought echoed in my mind. "You sure you're at Lila's?" Someone knew. And tomorrow, I'd have to face what that meant. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head pounded, my mouth tasted like regret and cosmopolitans, and Patrick's side of the bed was empty. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, along with the sound of our 7-year-old daughter's chatter. "Mummy's sick," I heard Patrick say quietly. "Let her sleep." Sick. If only it were that simple. I dragged myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. Last night's makeup was smeared under my eyes like evidence of guilt. My hair was a disaster, and I could still smell the stranger's cologne on my skin. What was his name again? Marcus? It didn't matter now. The shower water was scalding, but I couldn't seem to get clean. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tom Mitchell's face at the bar, saw the flash of his phone camera, felt the stranger's hands on my waist. When I finally made it to the kitchen, Patrick was loading the dishwasher while Emily finished her cereal. He looked up when I entered, and something in his expression made my stomach clench. "Morning," I said, trying to sound normal. Sorry I'm up so late. Lila and I had a bit too much wine. Patrick's hand stilled on the dishes. Did you? You know how she gets when she's talking about her dating disasters. We lost track of time. Emily looked between us with the sharp awareness children have for tension. Daddy made pancakes, but you were sleeping. That's okay, baby. Mummy's not feeling very well. I reached for the coffee pot with shaking hands. Food poisoning, I added, glancing at Patrick. Something we ate didn't agree with me. He was watching me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not angry, exactly. Hurt, maybe. Disappointed, certainly. But there was something else. Something that made my skin crawl with dread. Emily, go brush your teeth, he said quietly. We need to leave for school in 10 minutes. Our daughter hopped down from her chair and skipped out of the room. The moment she was gone, the air between Patrick and me became suffocating. How's Lila doing? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. She's fine, good. You know, same old stuff. That's nice. He closed the dishwasher and leaned against the counter, studying me. Tom called last night, after you left. My coffee mug slipped in my hands. Oh, what did he want? He was at Onyx. You know, that club downtown. Said he saw someone who looked exactly like you. The kitchen tilted around me. I set down my mug before I could drop it. That's weird. What would I be doing at a club? That's what I told him. I said you were at Lila's, having Thai food and wine, just like you said. Each word was a nail in my coffin. I could hear it in his voice. He knew. Somehow, he knew everything. Patrick, But then Tom showed me something interesting. He pulled out his phone with hands that were trembling slightly. He sent me a photo. Want to see it? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The kitchen was spinning, and I gripped the counter to keep from falling. Patrick's thumb moved across his phone screen, and then he turned it toward me. The image hit me like a physical blow. Me in the red dress, laughing, the stranger's hands on my waist as we danced. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. There was no denying it was me, no explaining it away. Who is he, Idalia? His voice was so quiet, so broken, that I almost told him the truth, almost collapsed into his arms and confessed everything. But the part of me that had been justifying this for months, the part that felt neglected and invisible, and entitled to one night of feeling wanted, reared up instead. It's not what it looks like. Patrick's laugh was bitter. It looks like my wife lied to me about where she was going, put on a dress I told her was inappropriate, and went to a club to dance with another man. What exactly am I missing? You're missing the part where you haven't touched me in 6 months. The words exploded out of me. You're missing the part where I feel like a ghost in my own house. You're missing the part where I needed to feel like a woman instead of just your roommate who happens to do your laundry. Patrick flinched as if I'd slapped him. So this is my fault? I didn't say that. You just did. You just blamed me for you lying and cheating. I didn't cheat. But even as I said it, I knew how hollow it sounded. I danced with someone. That's all. You lied to me. You used your sister as a cover story. You went to a club dressed like that, and you let another man put his hands all over you. What do you call that? I opened my mouth to argue, but Emily's voice interrupted us. Daddy, I'm ready. Patrick's jaw clenched. He slipped his phone back into his pocket and grabbed his keys. We'll finish this when I get back. Patrick, wait. But he was already walking away, calling out to Emily that they needed to go. I heard their voices in the hallway, heard the front door close, heard his car start in the driveway. I was alone with the photo burned into my memory and the terrible knowledge that everything was about to change. My phone rang. Lila. Jesus Christ, Idalia, what did you do? What do you mean? Tom Mitchell just called me, asked if you were really at my apartment last night. I covered for you, but he said he has proof you were somewhere else. What the hell is going on? I sank into a kitchen chair, suddenly exhausted. I went to Onyx. The club. Why would you... Oh God, you met someone, didn't you? It wasn't supposed to happen. I just wanted to feel, I don't know, alive. Idalia, you're married. You have a daughter. You can't just... Don't lecture me, Lila. My marriage has been dead for months. Patrick barely acknowledges I exist. So you decided to fix that by cheating on him? I didn't cheat. I danced with someone. That's it. While lying about where you were and using me as your alibi, do you have any idea what position you put me in? Tom thinks I helped you plan this. The accusation in her voice stung. I'm sorry. I just needed one night. One night of what? Destroying your family? Because that's what you've done. Tom has a photo, Idalia. Patrick knows everything. After she hung up, I sat in my empty kitchen and tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Last night, I'd felt powerful, desired, in control of my own life for the first time in years. Now I felt like a stranger in my own home, waiting for my husband to come back and tell me what happened next. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Hope you and Lila had fun last night. Give my love to Patrick and Emily. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Everyone who loved me was about to learn exactly what kind of person I really was. And I had no one to blame but myself. But even as guilt crashed over me in waves, a small, defiant part of me whispered that I wasn't the only one at fault here. Patrick had pushed me away first. Patrick had made me feel invisible. Patrick had created the conditions that drove me to seek attention elsewhere. I clung to that thought as I waited for him to come home and shatter what was left of our life together. Patrick didn't come home after dropping Emily at school. I waited all morning, rehearsing explanations that sounded increasingly hollow even to me. By noon, panic had set in. I called his cell phone 6 times, each call going straight to voicemail. I drove to Lila's apartment needing someone, anyone, to tell me this wasn't as bad as it seemed, but my sister's face, when she opened the door, told me everything I needed to know. You look terrible, she said, stepping aside to let me in. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Lila's apartment was small but immaculate, decorated in the kind of minimalist style that screamed single woman with disposable income. It used to make me jealous. Now it just made me feel trapped. Coffee? She asked, but her tone was distant, cold. Please. I collapsed onto her white couch, suddenly aware of how disheveled I looked in yesterday's jeans and an old sweater. Lila, I need your help. My help? She turned from the kitchen counter, coffee pot in hand. You mean like how I helped you last night by lying to your husband? That's not fair. Isn't it? Tom Mitchell called me at 7 this morning, Idalia. 7. He wanted to know if you were really here last night, and when I said yes, he told me he had proof you were at Onyx with another man. Do you know how that made me feel? Like an idiot, like a liar. You are a liar. You lied for me. Because you're my sister. Because I thought you were going through something and needed space to figure it out. I didn't know you were planning to cheat on your husband. I didn't cheat. The words were becoming a mantra, as if saying them enough times would make them true. Lila set down 2 mugs and fixed me with a look I remembered from childhood, the same expression she'd worn when I broke her favorite doll and tried to blame the cat. You put on a dress that made you look like you were hunting for men. You lied about where you were going. You used me as your alibi. You went to a club and let a stranger put his hands all over you while your husband was at home grading papers and waiting for you to come back. What do you call that? I call it trying to feel human again. I stood up, pacing to her window. You don't understand what it's like, Lila. You're single. You can do whatever you want. I've been invisible for years. Patrick doesn't see me, doesn't want me, doesn't even seem to like me anymore. I just wanted one night where I mattered to someone. So you destroyed your marriage. My marriage was already destroyed. I just finally admitted it. Lila's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it and frowned. It's Mom. My stomach dropped. Don't answer it. But she was already swiping to accept the call. Hi, Mom. What? Who told you that? Her eyes found mine across the room. Mom, I think you should talk to Idalia about this. No, I can't, because it's not my place to explain. She held out the phone. She knows. I took it with shaking hands. Hi, Mom. Idalia Sophia Rowan, what is this I'm hearing about you at some nightclub? My mother only used my full name when I was in serious trouble. The last time had been when I was 16 and came home drunk from a party. Who told you that? Evelyn Rowan called me 20 minutes ago, screaming about her son's whore wife. I told her she was mistaken, that you were having dinner with Lila. Then she told me about some photograph. Is it true? Evelyn, Patrick's mother. I should have known she'd be the first person he called. Mum, it's complicated. It's a yes or no question, Mija. Were you at a nightclub with another man while your husband thought you were with your sister? The disappointment in her voice was worse than Patrick's quiet hurt, worse than Lila's anger. My mother had raised me to be better than this. Yes, but, Dios mío, what were you thinking? I was thinking that I'm 33 years old and I haven't felt like a woman in years. I was thinking that maybe I deserved one night to remember who I used to be before I became just Patrick's wife and Emily's mother. And was it worth it? Was one night of feeling like a woman worth destroying your family? I couldn't answer that, didn't want to examine what the honest response would be. Where's Patrick now? Mom asked. I don't know. He won't answer his phone. Can you blame him? If your father had seen a photo of me dancing with another man... She trailed off, and I could hear her crying softly. How am I going to face Evelyn? How am I going to look at that woman knowing what my daughter did to her son? Mom, please, I need your support right now. What you need is to figure out how to fix this, if it can be fixed. After she hung up, I handed the phone back to Leela and sank onto the couch. Evelyn knows. Patrick's mother? Jesus, Idalia, she's going to tell everyone. What do you mean, everyone? I mean everyone. The school where Patrick works, your neighbors, people at church. You know how she is. I did know. Evelyn Rowan was a force of nature, a woman who'd raised 3 sons as a single mother after her husband died young. She was fiercely protective of her family and had never quite approved of me. This would be her vindication, proof that she'd been right to worry about the woman her precious middle son had married. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw the photo. Always knew you were trash. Then another. Poor Patrick. He deserves better. And another. Your daughter is going to be so embarrassed when she finds out what kind of mother she has. Lila, someone's sending me messages. Horrible messages. She looked at my phone and her face paled. Tom must have shared the photo. Oh God, Idalia, this is going viral. Viral? What do you mean? I mean half the town has probably seen it by now. Patrick's a teacher. People know him. And you. She gestured at my phone, which was buzzing with more messages. You're about to become infamous. I scrolled through the notifications. Facebook messages, Instagram comments, texts from numbers I didn't recognize. All of them saying variations of the same thing. I was a cheating wife, a terrible mother, a woman who'd destroyed a good man's trust. The worst part was that some of them were from people I knew. Neighbors, co-workers, parents from Emily's school. The gossip network had kicked into high gear, and I was at the center of it. I need to go home, I said, standing up unsteadily. I need to talk to Patrick. Idalia, wait. Lila caught my arm. I can't be part of this anymore. I can't cover for you or lie for you or help you spin this. What you did, it's not okay, and I won't pretend it is just because you're my sister. Her words hit me like a slap. So you're abandoning me too? I'm not abandoning you. I'm refusing to enable you. There's a difference. I left her apartment feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. The drive home was a blur of angry tears and growing dread. When I pulled into our driveway, Patrick's car was there, but so was another vehicle I didn't recognize. Inside, I found Patrick sitting at our kitchen table with a man in a suit. Legal documents were spread between them, and both men looked up when I walked in. "Mrs. Rowan," the stranger said, standing, "I'm James Morrison, Mr. Rowan's attorney." The room spun around me. "Attorney?" Patrick's face was calm, almost eerily so. "We need to talk, Idalia, about our future, or lack thereof." I looked at the papers on the table and saw words that made my blood run cold. Petition for legal separation and custody arrangement and division of assets. "You're divorcing me," I whispered. "I'm protecting myself and our daughter," Patrick replied, "from someone who's shown she can't be trusted." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Rowan, you might want to consider getting your own representation." I stared at the two men, at the official documents that would tear my life apart, at my husband's face. So familiar yet suddenly that of a stranger. "Patrick, please. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can—" "No," he said quietly. "We can't, because you don't think you did anything wrong. Even now, you're looking for ways to blame me or justify what you did. I can't live with someone who thinks lying and cheating are acceptable responses to marital problems." "I didn't cheat." "You betrayed me, Idalia. You betrayed our marriage, our family, and our daughter. Call it whatever you want, but I call it unforgivable." As I stood in my own kitchen, watching my husband plan the dismantling of our life together, one thought echoed in my mind. This was supposed to be just one night. One night of feeling wanted, feeling alive. Instead, it had become the night that cost me everything. The next morning, I discovered what social death looked like. My phone had 47 missed calls, 83 text messages, and more social media notifications than I could count. The photo of me dancing with the stranger had spread through our small town like wildfire. I made the mistake of opening Facebook. The image was everywhere. Shared, commented on, dissected by people who barely knew me, but felt qualified to judge my entire life. The comments were brutal. "Always knew she was trouble. Poor Patrick, he's such a good man. What kind of mother does this to her family? Trashy behavior. Hope it was worth it." Someone had created a group called Cheating Wives of Millbrook, with my photo as the header image. It had over 200 members already. I threw my phone across the room and it shattered against the wall. The landline rang almost immediately. I let it go to voicemail, then played back the message. "This is Principal Henderson from Millbrook Elementary. I need to speak with you about Emily. There's been an incident at school." My blood went cold. Emily. I'd been so focused on Patrick's reaction, on my own humiliation, that I'd barely thought about how this would affect our 7-year-old daughter. I drove to the school with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Every person I passed seemed to stare at me, though that was probably paranoia. Probably. Principal Henderson was a kind woman in her 50s, who'd always been friendly during parent-teacher conferences. Today, her expression was carefully neutral as she led me to her office. "Mrs. Rowan, thank you for coming in. Please sit down." Emily was curled up in a chair by the window, her face red and puffy from crying. When she saw me, she didn't run to hug me like she usually did. She just stared at me with eyes that looked too old for her face. "What happened?" I asked, reaching for her. She pulled away from my touch, and the rejection felt like a knife to the chest. "Some of the older children were talking," Principal Henderson said carefully, "about their parents' conversations at home. Children repeat what they hear, and unfortunately, Emily overheard some things that upset her." "What kind of things?" "Questions about whether her mother was unfaithful to her father, whether her parents were getting divorced. Very adult concerns that no 7-year-old should have to process." I looked at my daughter, who was staring out the window as if I weren't there. "Emily, sweetheart, can you look at Mommy?" She turned toward me, and the hurt in her eyes was devastating. "Did you kiss another man, Mommy?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that you didn't kiss anyone, but you did something that felt just as much like betrayal? How do you make a child understand the difference between physical cheating and emotional infidelity when you're not sure you understand it yourself? No, baby, I didn't kiss anyone. But you danced with someone who wasn't daddy. It wasn't a question. Someone had told her. Some child at school had repeated their parents' gossip, and now my daughter knew her mother was the subject of scandal. Yes, I said quietly. I did dance with someone else. Why? The simple question from my daughter's innocent mouth was harder to answer than all of Patrick's accusations and all of my family's disappointment combined. I made a mistake, sweetheart, a big mistake, and I'm very sorry. Are you and Daddy getting divorced? I glanced at Principal Henderson, who was trying to look invisible in the corner of her own office. I don't know, I said honestly. We're having some problems right now. Emily's face crumpled. Is it my fault? Oh, baby, no. No, it's not your fault at all. This is a grown-up problem. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why won't Daddy talk to me about it? Why did he sleep in the guest room last night? Why are you crying all the time? Each question was another reminder of how thoroughly I'd destroyed our family's stability. Emily had always been a bright child, observant and sensitive. Of course, she'd noticed the tension, the whispered conversations, the way Patrick and I could barely look at each other. We're going to figure it out, I said, though I had no idea how. Principal Henderson cleared her throat. Mrs. Rowan, I think it might be best if Emily went home early today. This has been very difficult for her, and the other children. She trailed off diplomatically. The other children what? Are curious, and children can be cruel when they're curious. I understood. My daughter was being treated like a pariah because of my choices. The sins of the mother being visited on the child. The drive home was silent except for Emily's occasional sniffles. When we got to the house, she ran straight to her room and slammed the door. I stood in the hallway, listening to her cry, and felt like the worst mother in the world. My phone, the replacement I'd had to buy after throwing the other one, rang. Patrick. I heard about what happened at school, he said without preamble. She's devastated. Of course she is. Her mother's the talk of the town, and not in a good way. Patrick, please. I know you're angry, but we need to think about Emily. She's confused and scared, and she needs stability. She needs parents she can trust. She needs to know that the adults in her life won't lie to her or betray her trust. The implication was clear. She couldn't trust me. I'm still her mother. Are you? Because a mother would have thought about how her actions might affect her child before she put on that dress and went hunting for male attention. I wasn't hunting for... Save it, Idalia. I've heard all your justifications. I've listened to you blame me, blame our marriage, blame everything except your own choices. I'm done. What does that mean? It means I've filed for emergency custody. It means I want Emily to stay with me until we can work out a permanent arrangement. It means I don't trust you to put her needs before your own desires. The phone slipped in my hand. You can't take her away from me. I can, and I am. My lawyer says the photo and the lying give me grounds to argue that you're an unfit mother. A woman who lies to her husband and betrays her family isn't someone who should have unsupervised access to a child. Patrick, no, please. You can punish me, but don't punish her. She needs her mother. She needs a mother who acts like a mother. When you figure out how to be that person, we can talk. He hung up, leaving me standing in my empty house with the sound of my daughter crying through her bedroom door. I tried the handle, but it was locked. Emily, can you open the door, please? Go away, she shouted. I don't want to talk to you. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor outside her room, listening to her sobs and trying to figure out how one night of dancing had turned into this nightmare. My phone buzzed with another message from an unknown number. Saw you at the grocery store. Couldn't even look at yourself in the mirror, could you? I hadn't been to the grocery store. Someone was watching me, following me, documenting my public shame for their own entertainment. This was my life now. My daughter hated me. My husband was taking her away. My family was disappointed in me. and strangers felt entitled to judge my every move. All because I'd wanted to feel beautiful for one night. All because I'd put on that red dress and forgotten who I was supposed to be. 3 days later, Patrick's lawyer called and asked me to come to his office. I'd spent those 3 days in a haze of humiliation and regret, watching my life crumble in real time. The gossip had reached my workplace. I could see it in my coworkers' whispered conversations and sideways glances. Even my boss, Mr. Chen, had started treating me differently, as if infidelity were contagious. James Morrison's law office was in a sleek downtown building that reeked of money and power. I felt underdressed in my simple black dress and cardigan, like a defendant showing up to court without proper representation. Patrick was already there when I arrived, sitting across from Morrison's massive desk with a manila folder in front of him. He didn't look at me when I walked in. "Mrs. Rowan, thank you for coming," Morrison said, gesturing to the chair beside Patrick. "We have some things to discuss." I sat down, hyper-aware of the space between Patrick and me. We used to sit close together during meetings like this, parent-teacher conferences, mortgage appointments, discussions about Emily's future. Now he might as well have been on another planet. "I assume you've retained counsel?" Morrison asked. No, not yet." Patrick finally looked at me, and his expression was a mixture of disappointment and something that might have been pity. "Idalia, you need a lawyer. This isn't going away." "I can't afford a lawyer. All our money is in joint accounts, and you've locked me out." "I've protected our assets," Patrick corrected, "from someone who's shown poor judgment." Morrison opened the folder and spread its contents across his desk. I recognized some of the documents immediately. Bank statements, credit card bills, phone records. Others were unfamiliar, but equally damning. "Let's start with the evening in question," Morrison said, pulling out a highlighted credit card statement. "Uber ride to Onyx nightclub, $47. 4 Cosmopolitans at $18 each. Another Uber ride home, $53. All charged to the joint credit card, while you told your husband you were having dinner at your sister's apartment." Each item felt like a nail in my coffin. I'd been so focused on the emotional betrayal that I'd forgotten about the paper trail. "Then we have the photographic evidence." Morrison slid a printed copy of Tom's photo across the desk. Seeing it again, in the harsh light of a law office, made it look even worse than I remembered. The stranger's hands were clearly visible on my waist, my head thrown back in laughter, my body pressed against his. We also have witness testimony from Thomas Mitchell, who observed the defendant. "I'm not a defendant," I interrupted. "This isn't a criminal trial." "You're right," Morrison said smoothly. "You're a respondent in a custody hearing, and the evidence suggests you're an unfit mother." "That's not true." Patrick spoke for the first time since I'd arrived. "Isn't it? You lied to me, Idalia. You used your sister as an alibi. You put on a dress designed to attract male attention and went to a club to do exactly that. You let a stranger touch you in ways that should be reserved for your husband. What part of that suggests good judgment or moral character?" I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to explain how neglected and invisible I'd felt. But sitting in that sterile office, surrounded by evidence of my deception, the words died in my throat. Morrison continued his presentation like a prosecutor building a case. "We have text messages between the respondent and her sister, clearly showing premeditation in creating a false alibi." He showed me printouts of my text with Lila, asking her to cover for me. "We have location data from the respondent's phone, proving she was not where she claimed to be." A map showed my phone's GPS trail from our house to Onyx and back. "We have additional witness testimony from club staff who remember the respondent's behavior that evening." This was new, and my stomach dropped. "According to the bartender, you appeared intoxicated and were all over an unidentified male patron." "That's not true," I said, but even I could hear how weak my protest sounded. "We also have evidence of the respondent's reaction to being discovered," Morrison continued. "Instead of showing remorse or taking responsibility, She blamed her husband for her actions and showed no understanding of how her behavior might affect their 7-year-old daughter. He pulled out another document. This is a statement from Emily's school principal describing how the child was traumatized by playground gossip about her mother's infidelity. The child required counseling and was sent home early due to emotional distress. Each piece of evidence was a weight on my chest, making it harder to breathe. I'd thought I was just having one night of freedom. I hadn't realized I was creating a legal case against myself. "What do you want?" I asked quietly. Patrick answered, "I want primary custody of Emily. I want the house. I want you to take responsibility for what you've done and stop trying to blame everyone else for your choices." "And if I don't agree?" Morrison smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Then we go to court, and all of this becomes public record. Every detail of your infidelity, every lie you told, every text message and credit card charge. Is that really what you want?" I thought about Emily, about how much worse this would get if it went to trial, about how the gossip that was already destroying our lives would become official testimony, reported in the local newspaper for everyone to see. "I need time to think." "You have 48 hours, Morrison said, sliding a settlement agreement across the desk. "After that, we file for divorce and full custody." I picked up the document with shaking hands. The terms were devastating. Patrick would get primary custody. I'd have supervised visitation every other weekend. I'd move out of our house, and I'd be responsible for half of all legal fees. "This is my daughter too," I said. "Then you should have thought about that before you betrayed your family," Patrick replied. As I left the law office, clutching the settlement papers, I felt like I was carrying my own death sentence. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, everything I loved was being taken away because of one night of poor judgment. My phone rang as I reached my car. Lila. "I heard about the custody hearing," she said without preamble. "How did you—" "Tom told his wife, she told her sister told Mom. You know how it works." I did know. The gossip network that had spread news of my infidelity was now broadcasting the details of my legal troubles. "Lila, I need you to testify for me. Tell them I'm a good mother, that I just made one mistake." "I can't do that." "What do you mean you can't?" "I mean I won't lie for you anymore. I won't help you pretend that what you did was just a mistake. You planned this, Idalia. You asked me to cover for you. You knew exactly what you were doing. So you're going to let them take my daughter away?" "You let them take your daughter away. The moment you put on that dress and walked out your door, you chose a stranger over your family. Now you have to live with the consequences." After she hung up, I sat in my car in the parking garage and cried until I couldn't breathe. Everyone I'd counted on for support had abandoned me. My husband, my sister, my mother, even my 7-year-old daughter. I was completely alone, and it was entirely my own fault. The settlement agreement sat on my passenger seat like a confession waiting to be signed. 48 hours to decide whether to accept my punishment or fight for what was left of my family. But deep down, I already knew what I was going to do. Because for all my justifications and excuses, I knew Patrick was right about one thing: I had betrayed our family. And Emily deserved better than a mother who would put her own desires above her daughter's stability. The question wasn't whether I deserved to lose everything. The question was whether I was finally ready to admit it. I didn't sign the settlement. I spent 2 sleepless nights telling myself I wasn't a monster, just a woman who deserved a second chance. Monday's custody hearing came fast, and my lawyer, Sarah Kim, warned me the evidence would crush me. Desperate, I went to Rosario's to explain, but the room went silent. My mother sat with Evelyn Rowan, and Evelyn tore into me in front of everyone. Then Patrick walked in with Emily. My daughter asked if it was true. I admitted it. "Why?" she whispered. "Because I forgot what mattered." Patrick left. Emily looked back. "I love you, but I don't want lies."